Well, hey everybody, good morning and welcome to Lake Oconee Church. I'm glad that you're here with us this morning. Hope you had a good week or at least a good weekend. Did anybody get to go outside and do something fun yesterday? Anybody? Yeah, it was amazing weather yesterday, and I got to go out and, I marked something off my to-do list. I stained my front porch, but it was something I'd been wanting to do, so I'm glad I got that out of the way, and I hope that you did as well. If we haven't met yet, my name is Andy. I'm on staff here, and if you're our guest, I'm so glad that you've chosen to be a part of this morning. And to make this morning meaningful, our guest service team has put together a gift I'd love for you to take with you as you go. So when you leave this morning, swing by the studio, which is the glass room you passed on the way in, and you can grab that quickly as you head out the door. It's something I think you'll enjoy using during this week. And if you're our guest online, you can go to guest.lakeoconee.church, and we'll email you something kind of cool as well, just as a small way of saying thank you. Well, as you came in this morning, you may have noticed that all the little ones are coming in with their favorite team jersey because tonight is the Super Bowl. So we've got all different kinds of jerseys for all different kinds of sports kind of walking in the door. But not only is it the Super Bowl tonight, but tomorrow is Valentine's Day. So spoiler alert. For those of you who have not yet planned something significant for that special person in your life, but we thought that might give us a kind of a cool opportunity to do something fun with our musicians, something that we're calling freestyling with the band. So, I'm going to ask the Jabadlos if they would to come up on stage with me here. There's stairs right over here. And if you will join me up here, give them a hand. So this is Ryan and Stephanie, and the way we're going to play this game is step right over here if you would. I got to come in the light. So the way we're going to play this game is I'm going to ask you a couple of questions just about y'all and your marriage, and then we're going to throw it to James David Carter and the band, and James David is going to write a song about y'all and sing it for us. So no pressure. Ryan and Stephanie. So no pressure on y'all and no pressure on him either. I mean, this is what he does all the time. So
please don't hold me liable for anything I sing right now. Don't hold me liable for anything I say or sing right now, especially online. I'm sorry.
All right, so here are our questions. You guys ready?
Yep.
All right, here we go. So when was your first date?
That was not one of the pre-discussed questions.
That's true. That's true. And I told you I might have forgotten some.
So, all right, well, then I'm going to answer it the same way.
What, you've forgotten?
No.
Oh.
First date we had, her mom actually came up. We met in college, and her mom came up to school.
You know what?
She,
You forgot your first date. I forgot to give you the mic. It's on. It's on.
Check. Here we go. So we met in college, and her mom had actually come up to our college about 2 or 3 days after Valentine's Day because her boyfriend had dumped her right at Valentine's Day. And while she was up there, her mom just was looking for random guys to introduce her to just to show her
and you
there's
walked
more
by.
fish in the sea. Well, secret, 6 months prior to that, I had told my best friend I was going to marry her, but we had never met until that moment. And her mom has still forever regretted that decision because months later, she was calling me the freight train that was taking her daughter away. So good luck writing a song about that one.
So your first date was at college?
After that, we went on a walk that evening and spent several hours talking about how the world had just blown up, and it was good.
You got all that? In 3, 5, 7 words? Okay, all right. How long have you been married?
So this summer it will be 13 years.
13 years, okay.
So 12 years.
Nice. Your favorite thing to do as a couple when you've got spare time?
Spare time. We have 3 kids.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
spare time is
There is no spare time.
I guess it would be, we will put the kids to bed and then have dinner after the kids are already in bed. So we can actually make something we like and sit down. Yes.
Dinner once the kids are asleep. Yeah, that makes sense. And so, Ryan, since the mic has now been passed to you, your favorite thing about Stephanie is? No pressure.
So I have a lot of weaknesses. Stephanie fills every one of those with strengths of her own.
Nice. That's very touching. That's very touching. Can you put that into a song? This is going to be a very long song, I'm seeing. This is going to be very, very long. Okay, so to recap, we have Ryan and Stephanie. Their first date was for hours and hours. Well, it was at college, at a basketball game. They've been married for 12 years, almost 13. Your favorite thing to do as a couple is, after the kids have gone to bed, have dinner together, something that you all would enjoy eating. And Ryan's favorite thing about Stephanie is how she steps into his weaknesses, and those are her strengths. We good?
I'm going to try. Let's do it.
All right.
Good luck.
Ready, set. We're just going to stand over here and watch. Yeah.
Is there a kind of song you want it to be?
You know what? Let's make it like a country love song. Let's do that. It's kind of your genre, your niche.
You guys have to be super supportive, okay? I'm
Yeah.
I'm up here. I'm walking the plank right now. Here we go. You guys ready? Y'all gonna slow dance for us? Can you? I feel like y'all should. Here we go. I'm sorry. Here we go. Ryan and Stephanie met back in college. Ryan was a random. He was creeping on Stephanie for a while then. It wasn't weird at all. But look at them now. They've been married for 13 years now. They have 3 great kids now. They got no sleep at all, no. Ryan's favorite thing about Stephanie is that she's way better than he is. Just look at him. He's wearing the right shirt, though. The Dogs are national champions. Everybody say go Dogs. They love having dinner together, to put it bluntly. They'll live happy ever after, forever now, here down in the Lake Country.
That was well done.
Sorry, y'all.
That was well done.
I'm sorry.
Well done. Well done. Great job. Toss me the mic, and y'all can have a seat. Thank you so much. Give them a hand. Well, it turns out that our band is kind of decent, apparently, so we're going to sing a couple more songs with them. They're not going to make these ones up, though. We'll put the words right there in front of you on the screen. I'd love for you to join us as soon as you're comfortable. So if you would, stand to your feet, say hey to somebody near you, and we'll keep this morning going.
Well, awesome. We're glad you're here. We're going to jump in and sing together a little bit. God is inviting us to receive his love this morning. Love for you to join in and sing with us. Here we go. When darkness tries to roll over my bones, when sorrow comes to steal the joy I own, when brokenness and pain is all I know, no, I won't be shaken. No, I won't be shaken. Here we go. 'Cause my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Oh, shame no longer has a place to hide, and I am not a captive to the lies. No, I'm not afraid to leave my past behind. No, no, I won't be shaken. No, I won't be shaken. 'Cause my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Sing this power. Oh, there's power that can break off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. Say, there's power in your name. There's power in your name. Say, 'cause my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Singing, my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your. Oh, my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Whoa, no. Whoa, no. Whoa, no. And I stand in your love. And I hear the Savior say, thy strength indeed is small. Child of weakness, watch and pray. Find in me thine all in all. 'Cause Jesus paid it all, and all to him I owe. Sin had left a crimson stain. He washed it white as snow. Yeah. White as snow, white as snow, white as snow. Lord, now indeed I find thy power and thine alone can change the leper's spots and melt this heart of stone. 'Cause Jesus paid it all, sing, and all to him I owe. My sin had left a crimson stain. He washed it white as snow. White as snow, yeah. White as snow. White as snow. White as snow. And when before the throne and I standing incomplete, my Jesus died my soul to save. My lips shall still repeat, 'cause Jesus paid it all, and all to him I owe. Sin left a crimson stain. He washed it white as snow. My sin had left a crimson stain. He washed it white as snow. He washed it white as snow. And he washed it white as snow. And oh, praise the one who paid my debt and raised us alive up from the dead. Oh, praise the one who paid my debt and raised us alive up from the dead. Oh, praise the one who paid my debt and raised us alive up from the dead. Oh, praise the one who paid my debt and raised us alive up from the dead. Oh, praise the one who paid my debt and raised us alive up from the dead. Oh, praise the one who paid my debt and raised us alive up from the dead. You're the one who paid my debt, God's only Son. Cause Jesus paid it all, and all to him I owe. My sin had left a crimson stain. He washed it white as snow. My sin had left a crimson stain. He washed it white as snow. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for singing this morning. You can grab a seat.
What a great reminder that as his love is offered to us, we owe him everything because he paid everything. And don't you just love how every week our bands help us to remember the character of our God? Every single week as they sing, they do that. And that's part of inspiring us to follow Jesus. And that's how we describe our mission here, inspiring people to follow Jesus as together we create churches that even our unchurched friends would love to attend. And that mission is really possible because so many of you participate in it. You give generously and intentionally to that mission. And that helps to provide encouraging music and excellent teaching and anchors in the hearts of our children down the hall as they learn and grow each Sunday, and repetitive demonstrations of God's love spread throughout our community as we carry that mission beyond these doors. And I'm so grateful for the way that so many of you lean in to that mission personally. And if you're looking to begin that important habit of generosity towards our mission, then you can use the buckets that are in the back of the room by the doors. You can do that through our app at the Lake Oconee Church app. Or probably the easiest way is through our website at give.lakeoconee.church, where you can give a one-time gift, you can schedule a recurring gift. But however you choose to do that, thank you for having a plan for how you plan to support your local church, because it takes that mission beyond this room and down the hall and way beyond these walls. So thank you for your part in that. Well, in a second, we're going to jump into this morning's message. And none of us like to sit through a boring teaching. And so every week we focus on how do we put the most engaging presenters in front of you. And this morning is no exception. Today we're going to be hearing from Joel Thomas. Sometimes we put those engaging presenters on our stage. Sometimes they're live from a nearby campus. And Joel Thomas has been a part of the North Point campuses and partner churches for a while. And this morning he's on stage in Buckhead, and he's going to be bringing us part 2 of this helpful series. But before we jump into that, I would love the chance to pray with you and for you. So let's take a minute to do that. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you that you did orchestrate Jesus paying everything for us. And the songwriter's response, all to you I owe. God, that's so thought-provoking. And God, when we begin to look at the course of our lives, so many of us begin to even question just our value to anything that you would be a part of. And God, over these next few minutes, as Joel speaks to us, I pray that you would challenge our thinking about who you made us to be and what you intend and hope for us. And God, I pray for those this morning that just over these last weeks, their lives have just been etched with moments of difficulty, and for some, I'm very mindful, just grief as they've grappled with some of the things that have played out in their lives. And God, I pray that your Spirit would be a source of comfort and encouragement. I pray that the message of today would bring hope for the days and weeks ahead. And God, thank you for Jesus. We really do owe you everything. And we're so grateful for the love demonstrated through him. It's in his name that we pray.
About that. We'll get to that in just a minute. I first want to say welcome. If you're in the room with us, so good to see you again today. If you're joining us in the Atlanta area at one of our other churches or one of our strategic partners, specifically I want to say hello to those of you who are up at Northridge. It's right near where I grew up, actually, or where I was born in Pittsburgh, which is awesome. So it's good to see you guys with us today. Thanks so much for joining us. If you're joining us online, wherever you're joining us from, we're so glad that you can join us or stay connected to us when you're traveling. We hope to see you at one of our churches or campuses sometime soon. Last week, we began a new series, and we began talking about all the misinformation that's going around in the world, and misinformation that when it's first presented, we don't always know is misinformation. It's hard to know what to believe and what to embrace and what's true and what's not true, and sometimes those things bear out to be true, and sometimes they don't. But the goal of this series is to discover how and where we can find reliable information. And we don't just want reliable information like reliable news. I mean, that's important too, but we want to find out how to find reliable information. Where can we find a source of reliable information to life's most important questions? Questions like, who is God? And who am I? And what's the best way to live? These are the questions that shape actually all of our society. They drive literature and art and business and culture and politics. I mean, these are the things that we're all after. And we've been looking, starting last week, through the lens of an ancient story that has remarkable, it's the most ancient of stories. And it has remarkable insight into these questions for you and for me, and for our lives. And we spent some time last week unpacking the Hebrew creation narrative. It's often referred to as the creation story, the story of Adam and Eve in Genesis. And if you weren't here, we're not necessarily debating. I'm not trying to convince you of its historicity, that you should take it literally. And some of you believe it's literal, and some of you believe it's metaphorical, and some of you believe it's mythological. That's not what we're interested in. We're talking about the meaning of the story. And if we're all honest, the value of a story is in its meaning. And we discovered last week in the meaning of this story that the origin of false ideas or lies that we're prone to believe come from a place, a very specific place. And it all begins with a question. It begins with this question. The question, did God really say? In the creation story, this is what the serpent approached Eve with. And the attack of the serpent wasn't necessarily on the woman specifically, but it was on her trust in the ultimate authority of God. The ultimate authority of God to what's reality and to what's true for her and what's true in life. And if the enemy can get us, we said last week, to trust our own inner intuition over and above a source of reality and a source of truth, if he can get us to trust our own inner intuition as to what's accurate or an accurate compass to the best way of life, to the best kind of life, to the best source of reality, then he has us. Last week, I drew some circles on the board. We're going to draw more circles. Somebody said to me, you like to draw circles. I'm like, well, I'm not great at drawing a lot of things. I did draw a book last week, by the way, but I do like to draw circles. I drew 3 circles, and we sort of depicted the enemy's strategy, the serpent's strategy in the creation story. He began with deceptive ideas that played into a distorted desire in her. And it started with, did God really say? And she's like, no, God didn't really say that. He just said we can't eat of this one tree. Not that we can't eat of all the trees. But he sort of said, would you want to be like God, don't you? He played into this desire to be like God and to take control and actually to be the God of her own life. And it led to destructive behavior for both her and for the man. And we left off last week trying to translate this into our lives. And we left off the question, who is God? It's the first big meta question in our series. And I sort of turned it on you and I said, hey, not just like who is God in the real sense, or what do you believe about God, or what do you think about God? It's who is your God? That's the question. This is the first domino in answering all 3 of these, the biggest of life's questions. And this first domino, it really leads us to the answers of all the other major questions. And what specifically we were dealing with and concerned with is, who and what in your life is the ultimate source of reality, the ultimate authority regarding what's true for you? Who's the ultimate authority when it comes to cultural ideas that are pushed on you or that you're led to believe? Who's the ultimate authority when it comes to your desires and the best way to follow those desires, the best way to deal with those desires, the best way to live out those desires? Now today, I want to shift our attention a little bit to a different question. And it's our second question, and the second question is, who am I? And one of the things I know is we all like to talk about ourselves. We all like to do learning. Today is not one of those personality assessments, but those are fun, aren't they? We learn a lot about ourselves in those personality assessments. But I want to talk specifically about the question, who am I? And to do this, we need to do a little bit of background. So I'm going to need you to hang with me for a few minutes. The development of what psychologists refer to as mental maps. Mental maps are mental maps to reality. This is simply just a web of ideas that shape our view of reality and our view of ourselves. The formation of these mental maps begins at a really early age. It begins when we're young. And another phrase for this in philosophy, they call this a worldview. It's this web of ideas that help shape how we see the world and how we live out the world. Now, this lives in the background of most of our lives, but the truth is these things are shaped in very specific ways. They're shaped in both direct ways through information and through teaching in our lives, and they're shaped in indirect ways through our observation and through modeling. People model certain things to us. Now, as you grow up in your life, you're exposed to a lot of information, a lot of different models, a lot of different behavior. You observe, you witness, you see a lot of things. Did you know the average person on a daily basis receives over 10,000 messages come into your eyes, through your eyes, and into your soul, into your body, into your mind. There's over 10,000 messages. And one psychologist noted there were at least 3 major problems with this that we don't really even recognize in our society. That as we blissfully just receive all these messages, there's 3 things going on that are not good. The first one is that we're not really paying attention to the things that are shaping our mental maps, that are shaping the way we view reality, the way we view the world, our worldview, our mental maps. We're not really paying much attention to what those things are specifically. Some of us, we know this. We need to pay more attention to the things that are shaping the mental maps of our children. With all these messages and devices, the things that we say to them, the things that we use to instruct them are just a really, really small percentage of the things that are shaping their minds and shaping their worldviews, shaping this mental map, which will actually be the thing that guides them in life in a practical, functional way. We're not paying enough attention. Secondly, we're not thinking critically enough. We're not thinking critically enough about the things that are shaping, and should we let those things shape us? Why? How are those things shaping us? What are the implications of the ways those things are shaping us? And then number 3, we're not being intentional enough about the things that we're allowing to shape us, that we're going to choose to shape us, that we're going to reach out and actively participate in shaping our minds and shaping our worldview, our mental maps, and the things that maybe are from the past that we need to discard or we need to get rid of. These are old things that have created maps that we've followed, and they're leading us in the wrong direction. Now, one of the most common examples of this and how our ideas and mental maps are shaped was observed by Blaise Pascal. Some of you may have heard of him. He was a 17th century mathematician and philosopher. He was one of literally the brightest minds of his century. And in the mid-17th century, he wrote a phrase that's become infamous. And this is what he said. He said, people almost invariably arrive at their beliefs, not on the basis of proof, but on the basis of what they find attractive. Isn't that interesting? It's not, is it true? That's not the question we're asking. The question we're asking is, do I like it? How do I feel about this? And if it seems appealing and it seems to make me feel good about me or about my circumstances or my situation, I begin to embrace it. We're actually going to talk a lot more about feelings and the things of the heart next week. But this is why marketing strategies and political campaigns work. And if you're in marketing, I used to be in marketing. I actually was before I was in ministry. I'm not throwing darts. I'm just telling you, you're brilliant because you work exactly with the way the human body and the human mind works. The more attractive an idea is, the more power one has to dictate our behavior simply by what's influencing what's in our mind. This is just like we saw last week in the creation story, guys. I'm failing. It's okay. Andy's gonna be back in 2 weeks, but I'm gonna keep pressing forward. Listen, I want to pick up the story where we were at last week. It's just like in the creation story. The serpent influence was in their mind. It dictated their behavior. This is what happens in our lives. And look, it doesn't stop then. After they ate, he goes on, after they ate, then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. And then, look at what happened next. The man and his wife heard the sound of the Lord God as he was walking in the garden in the cool of the day. This is the God who made them, the God who created them, the God who, after creating them, said, this is good. He blessed them with purpose, and he blessed them with power, and he blessed them with pleasure when he gave them significance and a role in society, a role in the world to rule over, to be fruitful and multiply. And when they heard him in the cool of the day, they hid. They hid from the Lord God among the trees of the garden. Now, it's the same threefold strategy that the enemy used to get them into trouble, to get them into danger. He continues to use beyond their behavior. I want you to look at this. Back to our graph here for a second, our Venn diagram. He used an idea. So after they've eaten, the idea that's seated in their mind is you're naked. And you should feel guilty. You should feel shame. You're unlovable. You're unforgivable. And you have a desire, you want to escape that. You want to get rid of that. You want to compensate for that. And so out of this desire to shed those feelings of being unlovable and unforgivable and guilty and sort of hiding in their shame, what do? They decide their behavior is to cover up and hide. And it's these same three things again. And this is exactly, the enemy's got them exactly where he wants them. You should be shameful. You should cover up and you should hide. Because God doesn't want to have a relationship with people like you. And they further separate themselves from God. And this began to form a twisted mental map in their mind of reality. Certainly of the reality of who God was and how he saw them and how he would operate in relationship to them. Today, I want to shift a little bit. I want to transition, and I want to look at some words in the New Testament from the Apostle Paul related to this story. But I want to listen and unpack the words of the Apostle Paul, who literally, this is what he's doing. He's pulling aside a group of new or young Jesus followers in Rome. He's pulling them aside to have a conversation with them because their mental maps have gotten twisted. And their mental maps needed rewiring. And so that's what the Apostle Paul is going to address with them. You know, you may have experienced this with somebody in your life. Maybe a boss, maybe a mentor, or maybe a parent or a friend pulled you aside at one point and said, hey, you don't want to keep going down that path. You don't want to go down that track. Hey, let me help you see things as they really are. Let me help you reshape or reframe your reality. And in essence, what they were doing is they were helping reform or untwist the mental map that had gotten twisted up in your mind. When I was an underclassman in high school, I was fortunate enough to make the varsity team, but because I was an underclassman, I wasn't getting the playing time that I thought I deserved, because I thought the people that were playing ahead of me, actually I knew the people that were playing ahead of me were not as good as me. I had few other problems in that season of my life as well, but I was certain the coach did not know what he was doing. And so it sort of led me to sort of like not take it seriously. And I had a lot of opportunity to actually play myself into a leading position on the team, but this is early, and this coach was about seniority and giving the older players a chance to prove themselves first, and I had to buy my time and all that stuff, and I didn't want to do all that, and so I kind of would mess around and sometimes have a lot of fun. And one day in practice, I sort of had some fun. That story's for another day, but I was having some fun, and it was actually a very memorable moment. It was really funny. Even the coach thought it was funny, and everybody thought it was funny, and the coach at one point said, hey, Thomas, that's a yellow card, like joking around. And in high school soccer, if you get a yellow card, if you don't know anything about soccer, it's okay. You get a yellow card, it's like a warning, like, hey, you get a warning, but in high school soccer, you have to come off the field. And so he said, hey, Thomas, that's a yellow card. And I just reflexively blurted out, what are you going to do, take me out of the game? And everybody on the team burst out in laughter except the coach. And he looked at me. He just sort of stared at me for a minute. And then we went on with practice. Needless to say, when I got to practice the next day, there was a note hanging in my locker that was inviting me to a meeting with the coaches before practice. And when I sat down with the coaches, he said, listen, it wasn't contentious. He wasn't mad. He goes, hey, that was actually really funny. But here's what I want to know. Do you actually want to be on this team? Like, do you understand how it works? Like, you're just a player on the team. You're actually an underclassman player on the team. You're new to the team. And I'm the coach of the team. And I'm sovereign on this team. I make all the decisions on this team. And you have a role and I have a role. And I just want to know, do you understand your role and you want to play your role? Now, this is what the Apostle Paul is doing for them. He's pulling these new Jesus followers aside who are going, oh yeah, we like Jesus and we just want to do whatever we want to do. We just want to live our life however we want to live our lives. He said, no, that's not how it works. That's not how this whole thing works. The Apostle Paul, as he pulls them aside, it says, therefore I urge you. And that's what this word urge, it's what it actually means. It means literally to call to one side or to pull to one side. This is the imagery of what the Apostle Paul's doing. It says, therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters. Hey, we're family now. We're part of a family. In view of God's mercy. Now, I need to pause here because he's basically saying, listen, everything else I'm going to say, you have to look through the lens. This is part of a mental map. You have to look through the lens of the fact that God did something extraordinary for us. And it was in his mercy that he acted toward us. Not because we deserved it, because he was merciful. And in view of this is something in view, you need to keep on the forefront of your mind. You need to see everything else I say. You need to see life through the fact that God was merciful to you. In view of God's mercy, keep that in your mind. Keep that in the forefront of your mind. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Now, both in the Jewish religion and in the pagan religions, Roman religions, Greek mythology, Greek religion, they understood sacrifices. But living sacrifice, this was something different. They understood sacrifices. You took something valuable to you and you gave it to God. You usually killed an animal or you gave something over to God, and a lot of times it was consumed or burned up in a fire. And he says, no, there's a new type of worship. And if you want your worship to be holy and pleasing or to be acceptable to God, you have to have a living worship, a living sacrifice. That means worship isn't just what we do when we come in here. We sing songs and we give offerings. Like that's a part of worship. That's an expression of worship. But the worship that God wants from you is he wants you to be a living sacrifice. And here's how you do this. He says, here's how you're going to be a living sacrifice. Do not conform. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so he's immediately contrasting two different things. He says, here's the thing. I don't want you to be conformed. I want you to be transformed. There's an option. You can be conformed or you can be transformed. And one is passive and one is active. To be conformed is a passive. This is a passive movement. It's sort of like this is what happens to something when it gets placed into a container. You know this. You put something in a container and it takes on the shape of that container. The New Living Translation, when it translates this verse, it says, don't copy the behaviors of this world. Don't be a copy. God made you to be something original. I mean, being a copy is mindless. It's unintentional. It's passive. I don't want you to take a passive role. I want you to take an active role in your formation. The truth is you're being formed. Both of these involve a forming process. I want you to take an active role and to renew your mind, to be renewed and to be restored. This is sort of, some of you, this is going to speak to you. You need to channel your inner Chip and Joanna Gaines in your mind and work at yourself in that way. I.e., you're a fixer-upper. We all are. We're fixer-uppers. And you need to think in that way that you need to be renewed and restored, and this takes an active, intentional participation. See, there's two options. You can either be conformed or you can be transformed. But make no mistake, we're all in the formation process. There's a formation process that's happening for all of us, and you're in it. You're being formed every minute of every day. Now, spiritual formation is something that Christians have used to talk about how we grow and become more like Christ. If you're new to faith, that might be a new term to you. But this is how we are. It's often described that we become more like Christ is spiritual formation. However, this is not just a religious thing. It's a human thing. And we actually now have science that better explains how exactly this happens. I mean, the Apostle Paul was talking about it 2,000 years ago or 1,700 years ago. And the reality is, though, we have science, recent science, that explains how this works to us. So if you'll just bear with me for a minute or 10 or so, I want to explain to you exactly how this happens a little bit. Now, neuroscience is fascinating to me. I'm starting to lose some of you already. I know I'm a dork a little bit. So, but this is going to be helpful, I promise. Science has long explored the connection between three things. When it comes to who we are, who I am, and who you are, there's three parts. Some say there's four, but there's at least three. And for the sake of this example, there's two of them that I'm going to combine. But there's the mind, there's the soul, and there's our body. Now, some people want to separate out the spirit from the soul, but for the sake of our illustration today, there's the mind, there's the soul, and the body. The mind is simply our thoughts. These are the things that come into your mind. These are your thoughts. Your soul is the immaterial part of you. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about that part of you next week. And then there's your body. This is the physical part of your body. And in the old model, basically, it was believed that the three of these were connected, but there was no hierarchy. I mean, there was clearly a relationship. There's an interconnectedness between these three things, but there's no hierarchy in them. And even though there's no hierarchy, the truth is there was little debate about a specific part of the body, which we call the brain. And the brain, as part of the body, it is widely recognized, or you could say the central nervous system, which the brain is the primary part of it. It's what controls our physical body. So there's, the brain is part of the body. It controls the physical part of our body. Here's where the debate is. The debate is, do our thoughts, do what's in our mind, does it control our brain, which controls our body, or does our brain control our mind and our thoughts? That's the difference. That was the debate for years. And just a few decades ago, just so you know, you may not know this, just a few decades ago, science believed that the brain was fixed and hardwired, that you only had a certain capacity, and you weren't going to grow beyond that. You only had a certain ability in terms of your brain capacity, and you weren't going to grow beyond that. And the science believed this was fixed until just about 70 years ago. This is fairly new. There were two discoveries. And these are the two discoveries. The first one is neuroplasticity, and the second one's neurogenesis. Now, wait. I can feel your eyes glazing over, okay? So just hang with me. I promise this is not that bad. There's two discoveries. I'm almost done. Neuroplasticity and neurogenesis. Okay, neuroplasticity was discovered in 1948. This is all it means. It means that your brain has the ability, the physical matter of your brain has the ability to change continuously throughout your life. Like it changed physical shape. The gray matter in your brain, the synapses of your brain, they actually can change and be reformed and rewired. That's what neuroplasticity means. The second thing, and if you're a neuroscientist in here, you're way oversimplifying this. That's true. But for the sake of our point here, you can call me out if what I'm saying isn't accurate, but I am oversimplifying. The second thing is neurogenesis. And this is much newer, 1998, just before the turn of the century. We discovered that every day, think about this is just less than 25 years ago. We discovered that every day you wake up and you have new brain cells that have been generated that are waiting to be shaped and molded by stimuli that's coming into your mind every single day. And the matter of your brain, the cells of your brain, these new cells that are being grown, this is why this is important, is because the primary shaper and the change agent of those in the brain, we've now discovered it's not the environment. It's not food. It's not substances you put in your body. All of those have an impact, but the primary shaper and the primary changer is our thoughts. There is a hierarchy. The truth is, your thoughts are what shape what goes on in your brain. Dr. Carolyn Leaf, who writes about this, and she writes about the integration of faith along with all of this neuroscience. Dr. Carolyn Leaf summarizes the implications of this in her book, Switch on Your Brain. She says this. She says, our mind was designed to control our body, of which our brain is a part, not the other way around. Matter does not control us. We control matter through our thinking and through our choosing. Our thoughts actually have the ability to change the physical nature of our brains. It creates new thought networks. It changes the gray matter. It strengthens and weakens synapses. Did you know that your thoughts can actually change your DNA? Isn't that extraordinary? It actually proves something that the scriptures said literally hundreds of years before Paul, that sins are passed down from generation to generation. Thoughts change your DNA, and when you have offspring, it's passed to them, and then it's passed to their offspring and to their offspring. This is the idea we now know by science. There's medical implications in this. Some of you know this. Stress is recently, American Medical Association wrote in their journal about a story on this major recent discovery that stress was the major contributor in 75% of all illness and disease. Think about that. Stress, major contributor in 75% of all illness and disease. Nobody was talking about that during the pandemic. I guarantee you that. You talk about something that perpetuates things. I'm not trying to be political. I'm just saying, like, this is science. This is what everybody goes, oh, well, what about the science? Well, here, this is what's true about the science. Did you know that the primary cause of stress, anybody know what that is? Negative thoughts. It's the primary cause of stress. In fact, there's Dr. Herbert Benson at Harvard. He's the chief of mind-body medicine at Harvard. He said that the reason that we have all this illness and disease that's caused by stress is because that stress obstructs the natural healing powers of your body. And it comes by negative thoughts. You know what science is actually proving is an old phrase that people used to say and want to believe in, that mind can be over matter. You've heard this before? Now it's not just a hope so. This is, you better believe so, because this is exactly what happens. What happens in your mind shapes what's happening in your body. Last thing, last scientist, last piece of science, and then I want to talk practically. What does this mean for us? Hebb's rule. Dr. Donald Hebb, he's a neuroscientist. He's famous for saying this. People quote him all the time. Cells that fire together, wire together. Cells that fire together, wire together. Basically, all he means is repetitive thoughts change the physical and functional structure of your brain, affirming the other science that we talked about. And it creates new patterns of thought and reflexive patterns of behavior that shape how you do what you do. Reflexively, it's just your normal impulse. This is why I get off the wrong exit almost every day on 400 to go to my old house. Because before we moved back here, thousands of times I got off at one exit, and now I live off a different exit on 400, and I'll be on the phone, and I'll get off the old exit to go towards my old house, and I'm like, there, I did it again. I literally have done this dozens of times since I've moved back, and it's the evidence of this right here. For years and years and years, I got off at this exit, and so when I'm not thinking about it, my body reflexively takes me off this exit. You know the implications of this is that the ruler of your mind, some of you know where I'm going with this. Maybe you can help me because last time it didn't go so well. The ruler of your mind is the ruler of your what? It's the ruler of your life. The ruler of your mind is the ruler of your life. This is so important. We don't realize this. This is sort of happenstance about how we let things come into our mind. The difference between developing healthy, life-giving habits that lead to wholeness and flourishing and the destructive patterns that lead to addiction and brokenness and our eventual ruin. It begins with the ideas that we feed our minds. This is powerful. This is sort of changes the game if we can become aware and live with this awareness and live with this truth about reality. It's powerful. And to all this science, I think the Apostle Paul would respond to us and he'd see all the science and he'd say, told you so. I told you this a long time ago. And Solomon would say, well, hundreds of years before you, I said this. Solomon wrote in the scriptures in Proverbs 23, he said, as a man thinks in his heart, not as he feels in his heart, as he thinks in his heart, so is he. It's the same thing. And a side note, we're gonna address that specific thing next week about what you think and what you feel in your heart. But the truth is the mind not only controls the body, it controls what's going on in our soul as well. We'll talk about that relationship next week. But I want you to consider this. For those of you, whether you're Jesus followers or not, I don't know how seriously you take Jesus, as we talked about last week, whether he's actually your God and the God of your life and the God of your day-to-day and your moment by moment. But I want you to consider, maybe this is why Jesus came as a rabbi, which I don't know if you know what a rabbi is. A rabbi is a teacher. And when you think about what teachers do, teachers are basically an informational guide for developing mental maps to reality. Good teachers, which we have a ton of those that are in our church, good teachers empower us to live in congruence with how life actually works. They're trying to give us information about what's true so that we can live out and live in a world with the knowledge of reality. Jesus said this. Andy actually quoted Jesus a couple of weeks ago in his last series. He quoted Jesus as saying, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Jesus came as a rabbi so that we would understand and we would know the truth so that it could set us free. The reason is because truth empowers people. You've seen this. This is actually widely embraced in our world. Truth empowers people because it empowers people to live in reality. You can live according to reality. But what Jesus was saying at the same time is not only can you be free by following the truth, but if you're not following the truth, if you're not living in the truth, you're enslaved. And what are you enslaved to? You're enslaved to living in an unreality, in something that's never going to be true. You're living in the opposite direction of how things actually work. We know the danger of this. The danger is that these lies, these unrealities, these things that we believe that have shaped the mental maps in our minds, these lies, they can actually become true. We talked about this last week. The positive side of this, the genius of humanity, is that these unrealities can come into reality because we have this ability to hold in our minds this unreality and work together to bring things through our imagination into reality. But sometimes we get deceived. John Mark Comer said that this is also our Achilles heel. It's our genius, but it's our Achilles heel. Because sometimes these unrealities are brought into reality in a really unhealthy way. Sometimes these lies that we believe, specifically the lies we believe about ourselves and others, they actually become true. So we have, our language for that is that things become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Same thing, same idea. I'll never be good at this. You hear your kids say that, and you're like, don't say that. If you say that, you will never be good at that. You can't say that. I'm going to stop you right there. Don't say you'll never be good at this, because then you'll never be good at this. I always mess up relationships. Guess what? You keep telling yourself, and you'll continue to mess up relationships. They'll never change. That person's never going to change, or you'll never change. You keep telling them that, and they will never change. That's true. Now, these seem simple and fairly benign, but I want you to consider this. I want to consider that somebody, maybe today, maybe you, somewhere along the way, you picked up the thought that you were unlovable. That became part of the mental map in your life. It's sort of you look through that mental map and you operate through that. Now, you wouldn't say that, but maybe you learned that through a broken relationship with your parents, or maybe abandonment or an unfaithful partner, or the betrayal of a close friend. Or maybe it was a personal failure that caused you to think, I'll always keep screwing things up. I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy of love. And that repetitive idea, it infiltrates your neurobiology and it shapes your behavior. Because you think you're unworthy of love, here's what happens. You put up with people's actions, treating you in ways that are disrespectful or demeaning. Or you act in ways that are disrespectful and demeaning because this is your view and this is your thinking of yourself. You feed yourself that line long enough, and tragically, what was once false begins to become true. This is the power of the mind. You end up becoming a person that's not worthy of loving and not worthy of respecting. Here's the good news. According to good biology and good theology, you can break that cycle. You're not stuck in that. That label doesn't have to define you, and it doesn't have to dominate you any longer. And the thing is our pop culture's no help in this. You begin to feel bad about yourself. You feel like you're unlovable. You feel like, people don't like you, or you don't have meaning, or you don't have purpose, or you're never going to succeed. When you feel bad about yourself, if you want to feel better about yourself, what does the culture say to do? Thank you for helping me. Treat yourself, right? This is what we do. You want to feel better about yourself? Treat yourself, right? That's what we're told. You need a new lifestyle. Get a new house. Upgrade your house. Get a better car. Get a better job. Find a better spouse. You change your appearance. Start going to the gym. Like, go on a diet. Get some better drip. Get a surgery, right? Like, this is how you feel better about yourself. And I'll just tell you, there's some instant gratification in that. You'll feel better for a time. But in reality, it's just a temporary distraction. In the end, it's not reality. We realize that these external transformation strategies, which is not what they are, these external transformation strategies, they don't work. The truth or the reality is we don't change from the outside in. We change from the inside out. We're all actively in the midst of a formation process. The question is, are you being conformed or are you being transformed? The truth too, as we talked last week, is there's two forces in your mind. There's one that the scriptures call the father of lies. This is the enemy. It's represented by the serpent in the story. He's the father of lies. And he's also known as the ruler of this world. The Apostle Paul saying, don't be conformed to the pattern of this world. It's ruled by the father of lies. And his goal is to steal and to kill and to destroy. He uses deceptive ideas that play into distorted desires and lead us to destructive behavior. He puts ideas in your mind that lead to distorted desires and destructive behavior. We now know by science that he's working against you in the way in which you were designed to work. He's just twisting your mind. You can either follow the father of lies, or you can follow the one that claimed to be the way, the truth, and the life. He promised to lead us toward a fullness of life. And this is, whether you realize it or not, this is what's happening. This is interconnected. These are the things, these are the two forces that are at work. And the reason that this is true and the reason this happens the way it is, and the Apostle Paul, is why he says you need to take every thought captive. It's because one of these forces will form you. It's forming you in your mind. It's forming your life. And if you want to know which one it is, here's how you know. It's really simple. Which one has your attention? Just made it right there at the bottom of the board. Which one has your attention? Let me ask you, to close. What are you reading? What are you podcasting? What are you binging? Who are you following? Who are you scrolling? Who are you looking for? Who are the primary influences in your life? Who has the most amount of messages coming into your life? Who's dominating your thoughts? What are the dominant thoughts of your past that are shaping, maybe that have created toxic mental maps in your life for you in your adulthood? Here's what's at stake. I'm going to tell you what's at stake. It's a grown man who grew up in an achievement-driven household and now believes I'm only as good as I am successful at work. It's a grown woman who's a perfectionist mother who's taught that she has to have it all together or appear to have it all together, not only to accept herself, but to be accepted by other people. It's a young man who grew up without a dad or an absent dad. And he believes because of that, I would never be, I could never be a good dad. It's a young woman who constantly compares herself to the life of Instagram. And because of what she sees, she thinks, I'm undesirable. I'm unworthy of love. See, these influences ultimately determine what you think about you. The Apostle Paul's saying, don't be conformed, you're being formed. Don't be conformed, because what you think about you specifically is fundamentally who you're being formed into. What you think about you is fundamentally who you're being formed into. And it's why the question, who am I, is inseparable from the question of who is God. Who or what is ultimately defining reality related to your identity? Who or what has the final word? Is it your title? Is it a relationship? Is it social status? Is it your net worth? I mean, what if you were to begin to feed your mind what God says about you? I'll tell you what would happen. Those things would become true about you, They would come into reality. You would begin to live those things out. But the enemy's not just going to let that happen. He's going to come back to you. He's going to go, did God really say? I mean, did God really say you're loved even though you live as if he doesn't exist? Is that what God really says? And our answer has to be emphatically, yes, he really did. That's what God said about me. Regardless of what I did, he said I'm loved. And did God really say you're forgiven? I mean, even though you've screwed up so bad, yes, remarkably, amazingly, that's what God said. Did he say you're a new creation? Yes, he said I'm a new creation. Did he say you're free? You can be free from all those hurts and habits and hang-ups in your past, all those things you did wrong. You can really be free. You can overcome those things. Is that really true? Yes, that's what God really said about me. That's what's true about me. Did God really say you're valuable? I mean, come on. Your boss doesn't think you're valuable. I mean, at that pay scale, at that level in the organization, you're valuable. That's what he said. Did God really say you have hope and a future? Yeah. Even though I've seemed to have lost everything that really matters and pushed people away that really matter in my life, he said that my future in him is bright. I have hope and a future. Did God really say? And sometimes we just need to interrupt the enemy and go, hold on, yo, Satan, I'm going to let you finish. But I just want you to know, whatever you put, some of you are tracking with me, whatever you put in this box in the future, the answer is yes, he really did. That's what God said about me. And because he's the ultimate authority on what is true, the truest things about me are not what my past says. It's not what the enemy says. It's not what you say. It's not what the world wants me to believe. It's what God says about me. Therefore, I will begin to live out that reality, because what's most true about me, what's true about who I am and what I am, is what you say about me. That's who I really am. And that's who you really are in Christ Jesus. Let me pray for you. God, I pray for somebody who's here today. Man, they've been holding on to, maybe almost like a wet blanket, they've been holding on to some thoughts from the past. Maybe because they were told they had to. Maybe just because they thought it's reality and they're trying to compensate in life for words that were spoken over them, messages that were given to them at an early age in life, messages from a toxic or broken relationship, messages from parents who were doing the best they could with what they were given, but didn't help and really put them behind in this area. It's not to villainize their parents, but it is to begin to step into reality. God, I pray today that somehow you would wash over them with truth and reality, that you would help them to begin to be transformed by the renewing of their mind, the restoring of what's in their brain about what's true and what's real and what's right. I pray today that you would, by the power of your Spirit, supernaturally erase toxic mental maps that are in our minds about what's true about us and true about the world around us. And that you would supernaturally replace those things with your truth, the things that are real, the things that you say about us. And that today our response, when we hear the things that you say that are true about us, our response would be, I believe. I believe you, God. I'm going to surrender today to you as the ultimate authority of what's true, the ultimate authority of what's real and what's right about me. And I choose to believe, I believe that what you say about me is ultimately what's true about me. And I pray it in Jesus' name.